All right, so today is to do a PIA of our fire over on 451 D Street. It came in early morning. So it sounds like there's some issues with this fire that happened. And we're here to just talk about those and how we can improve from that. Does it do any good to start yelling at anybody or pointing fingers? Let's figure out what we did wrong and how to improve on those things. So as we go through this, don't feel picked on. I have yet to be on a fire where everything went perfectly. I think every PIA I've done, there's always takeaways from those PIAs. So, you know, if you have concerns, bring them up and let's talk about it. But let's try to keep it, you know, calm and level-headed and grow from these things. All right. So with that, so first arriving unit, well, our first unit was dispatched at 3:49. That was going to be Ken. And Ken arrived at 3:55 that morning. So Ken, do you want to tell us what you had en route and what you had on arrival?
En route, as I was coming down T Street, you can see the header coming up. I did my drive-by past the house, wound up parking down at D and 5th just to free up room for the truck and the engine that were coming in. Got out, did my 360. I had heavy smoke from the back of the building and the eaves. And on the Charlie side, I looked and you could see fire in the, I guess it was probably the kitchen is what I was looking at. You could see, you know, fire in there, which wound up being right at the origin of where the fire started. As I come around, I had light smoke coming out of the eaves on the front and kind of the front portion of the Charlie or Bravo and Delta sides. And that was pretty much my size.
So it looks like next at scene was Aaron. So Aaron is the company officer while en route. What are you thinking on this?
So, well, I was thinking hydrant, which hydrant do I want to take? And some thoughts that came into my mind were, well, if this is working fire, we want to lay in wet. And where is the engine going to come from? And I kept thinking that they were going to go en route, so I could have that conversation with them to make sure that we weren't going to be coming in the same way. So then I kept not hearing them going route. I'm thinking, well, maybe they went on the screen en route. And so I'm coming up 5th Street and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to stay on 5th Street. And because even though the hydrant would be better to take the one on 6th Street because it's on the same block, we could have bumped over a block and then taken that hydrant. But I thought the engine might be coming to that same spot. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to come up 5th Street. And I'm talking to Jason and I said, we're going to take the hydrant at the corner of 6th and we'll hand jack it. And as we're coming around the corner and BC 31 had just gotten on scene really. And Savage says, take the hydrant at 5th and D Street. And I'm like, no, we got a plan. We're going to take the one on 6th Street. And that really kind of started all the bad things. So my thought process was it wouldn't take us that long to hand jack it. It wasn't very far away. It was just the 3rd house in. But what ended up happening was a lot of confusion that, I don't know, it snowballs.
Can you draw just where you were on there?
Yes.
Where you try to make it the right size.
So yeah, so we came in this way and we parked. No, you didn't want all that, maybe.
No.
So we parked in front right here. That's it.
Oh, Charlie, there, you're right.
And we were facing this way. So.
All right. So once you were staged, what'd you do from there? And who was with you on
So
it?
at this point, I had Mackenzie, Dylan, and Carol.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm thinking, well, the engine's not here, so now we're gonna have to pull line and be engine. And so I had Mackenzie pull a crosslay to the front door. She started getting ready to pack up. I jumped off. Savage had not gotten over there yet, so I did a quick 360. We actually ended up kind of doing it at the same time. Saw where the hot spot was. It was in the middle bedroom on the back there. And so come around to the front and we charged the hose line and we were ready to go. And I think that's about when engine 31 got the orders to be vent group. And then, I mean, I can go from there, but
So
Yeah.
Brad, you were engine 31.
Yeah, with Corey.
So before that though, medic 34 came on scene. He was medic 34. So who's with you?
It was Connor, Juan and I.
Okay.
Yeah, we parked our unit at D Street and Fifth, right directly across from the hydrant. We're. Yeah, that's where we were at. And we were going up D Street's where we're parked.
So what was your order? What'd you do?
So we got our packs on. I went to command, tagged in with command. And as I was walking up, I was assuming that we were gonna be probably hand jacking for the truck to get them water. And so that's kind of what I was assuming. That's what command told me to do, is to get water to the truck. So and about that time is when engine 31 lead came on scene in front of truck 21. Or 21, 34. Jeez. Yeah.
So now for Brad.
Yeah, so we came down Sixth Street, the intersection that's up here, right before that intersection is when we got our orders to be bent. And we kind of just parked right here in the middle of the street. So we parked in the middle of the street there. I got out, I didn't put the pumping gear or nothing like that because we got the order to vent. Got out, started getting my stuff on, getting my pack on. I saw a bunch of hose started flying off the back of my engine. And I wasn't sure what was going on at that point. And so I hollered at.
Real quick. Who was giving the order? I thought you were doing truck 34.
Yeah, so we were going to supply to truck 34. I saw Carol throw out, looked like a pony section towards the hydrant on 6. The way engine 31 was positioned, they were nose to nose. So my thought process was start pulling LDH off 31, go to the hydrant, and then connect it to the truck 31. Or 34. That's what my thought was.
Oh, okay.
So
Nobody gave you that order. You just did that or?
my order was just to get water to truck 34. So
Oh,
I was kind of, I guess, game planning for us three of how to do that.
We thought we were gonna relay off the engine to the truck.
oh.
I think that was kind of the confusion right there.
That's where it kind of.
happened. My thought process was hydrant to truck, and other people were thinking hydrant to engine to truck. That's
But those two are going to do ventilation. So what did you do when you were?
So when I saw the hose going off, I got confused about what was going on, so I hollered at Corey and I thought I said to Corey, hey, are we still venting? Did something change or whatever? And he said something back to me, but I couldn't remember or couldn't hear what it was that he said to me. And my mistake was I did not confirm with him that we were continuing with ventilation. I thought for some reason they wanted me, because I said to him, I was like, I think they want me to supply the truck. And so with them pulling the hose off and everything, I thought, oh crap, I'm supposed to, we're switching and I need to start hooking up to them. Like I said, my mistake was I didn't confirm it 100% with Corey. That's what I was supposed to be doing. So I started hooking up my stuff to the engine to get ready to supply the truck. And during that process, we had a couple issues where like the pony didn't want to hook up to the 4-inch. It was very difficult. I think Juan and Lamar were working on that, or maybe Carol helped out with that. I'm not 100% sure, but they had a hard time hooking those two up. I was trying to get the truck hooked up on the LDH on the other side, and the cap was stuck on it. Carol ended up getting that off. And then once we got that going, at some point they got me water from the hydrant. Well, when the water came to the intake, it spun the intake and I couldn't open the LDH crank wheel. And so then, so then I went around to the other side and disconnected one of the 2.5s and hooked on that 5-inch 2.5 to do it that way. But by the time that I got all that set up, I think that's when Carol said, I'm out of water. And they ended up pulling a line off of my engine. I supplied that line. They were fighting fire with that, and then that's
Who
what
pulled that line?
I did.
You did. Okay. And then you went and fought fire.
I pulled the It goes the 200-foot section straight to the front, like big bay window. By that time,
How did that hose deploy?
I did just the, whatever, this B split, that's what I did. Yeah. And then by the time I got to the front window, there's flames were blowing out the front window. So we started.
And engine 34 had gotten there about the time he got to there and they got the truck hooked up and got.
Engineer, draw where their hose lines are. Or let's do it like a different color, smooth blue.
All right, so when we got on scene, we initially pulled a hose line from the truck. That was our initial attack line. I immediately started giving them water. I never heard the command to do vent because they weren't en route when, you know, by the time I got out of the truck, so, or that order hadn't been given. There was, like Brad said, there was some confusion, some hoses being pulled off here. I threw my pony out. There was also a car parked right here, which was right in the way, and these were like, you're talking this much space in between. Or, you know, a couple feet at most between the engine and the car. So we threw that out, they pulled a section of LDH off, hooked it up to a hydrant, tried to come here and didn't quite reach. It is my recollection of it. This was then drug around to this side, hooked up. Everything that Brad just talked about happened, right? With not being able to get the pony section hooked up, with the intake manifold spinning. I went over there and tried to help Brad with it, and he was right. I mean, that wheel wouldn't spin because that intake was right in its way.
And you guys tried doing that where you pull the pin and shift the manifold.
Well, this.
The part that was in the way was the part that actually opens up to allow water in. When it spun that black handle right into the LDH wheel handle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there was just no way, there was no way. And so I ran back to my engine. At that point, I hollered at Lamar, like, get me direct water from the hydrant. Ran back to my engine, realized I'm almost out of water. I radioed to Aaron, said, hey, you guys are about to be out of water. Then I came over and gave the order to Lamar to go ahead and just pull the line off of engine 31 and bring it over there to fire attack. And while he was doing that, then we worked out the direct line from the hydrant to the truck.
So at some point in time, you had the hydrant, this engine, did it ever supply you?
It never did because we couldn't open the discharge on this side.
Okay.
So we got it hooked up, we were right there, and then there was no possible way to open up that discharge.
So did you have to shut the hydrant down?
We had to shut it down and, you know, I've got 2.5 minutes of water on this truck, so by this time I'm out of water. So.
So we, Mackenzie pulled the line to the front door. And then at some point I tried to get her to close the front door, which was open. But there was a lot of debris, as we found out later on, it was a hoarder house, that prevented her from being able to shut the door. So we tried to do a little bit of vent control, but it didn't work. Maybe a minute after we ran out of water, because the door's open, we may as well shoot some water in there, pull it. The big picture window broke. That's how I remember.
Yeah, it was. And then that's when I started pulling the line back because I had no water in my line. I just
Yeah.
didn't want it to burn because it was fire coming out the windows. I just pulled the line back.
Yeah, I was aware that vent wasn't happening and so I kind of got up and like, we're waiting on vent. So found Corey and he had lined up some tools and stuff. I had no ladder thrown. So I grabbed Mackenzie. She and I threw the 28-footer on the Bravo side of the house. And then Corey's like, I don't have a partner. And I'm like, where's your partner? And then that's when I found out, that he lost his partner. So I said, well, you can have Dylan. He still needed a third, to at least, have a ladder person. But before they even climbed up the ladder, that
Corey was
got
on the ladder
canceled.
to step up on the roof, but
So,
by then you had the heavy smoke coming up the front east as well. And I couldn't see the roof at that point.
Well, and you wouldn't have had a backup line at that point either, would you?
we did, because we were pulling it.
Did you? Well, somebody pulled one
We
off the
did
other,
not
but they had no water in it.
water anymore. So you're right.
Yeah.
We only had one line of water.
The backup turned into the
Primary, yeah.
Yeah.
After that, I went and I told Mackenzie, so they had water now, through the line from engine 31. So Mackenzie, Dylan and I took the line around to the back Charlie side, and because I knew that that's going to break out of the windows if it hadn't already. And it hadn't quite yet. So we dropped that, left the line there because we still had no water from the truck. And then we went and assisted engine 34, who finally arrived with a water supply from the hydrant on Fifth Street. So they dropped a tail.
I don't remember who all was that. Hey, Greg, were you on that one? Were you on engine 35?
Ryland and I were on reserve engine 34. We're on the Super B. So we took the hydrant across the street, across from Fifth Street on D.
I saw them. You guys were like right here.
And then we supplied, so I took the hydrant, Ryland drove to the scene, and then from there, him and Carol hooked up the Super B to the truck. Is that right, Carol?
No, the Super B never ended up supplying me. We ended up getting, or no, yes, it was. The Super B supplied me and then the hydrant went.
Just one thing on that too, it's engine 34, not reserve engine 34. Great.
Oh, copy that.
So did you guys relay that one as well?
Super B.
No, so. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So on Super B, we were going to relay pump, but Erin came around and she said, let's just pull the 4-inch directly from the hydrant at 5th ND and take that to the truck. And so we just stretched, I think it was 300 feet of the 4-inch from the hydrant to the truck. And we didn't end up relay pumping from Super B at all.
And no lines were pulled off that,
Correct.
but you hooked into you?
No, he didn't. That's what I was trying to remember is we ended up, our supply was directly from the hydrant. Because Ryan and I had that conversation, because at that time we were still trying to figure out what was going on with the hydrant and engine 31 and all the connections there. But about that time that we were having that conversation, they had gotten that worked out and got a line hooked up to me, so they just supplied me straight from the hydrant.
Oh, okay, so they bypassed the Super B and went right to you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that. Okay, and so that line was charged again at that point?
Yeah, the hydrant line got charged.
All right.
What apparatus did the line that went around the back of the house come off in?
Truck 34.
We dragged our.
Yeah, and at that point, I think is when Foster said, hey, we need people. I think it was just people, right? The back- He's like, I got a line, but I need people.
Right.
And so we went around and we became Charlie Division.
And so 302, you arrived in the midst of all this. What'd you see? John?
Yep,
There.
so I pulled up and I was in the, kind of the alleyway there, or the gravel section of, was it, 7th, 6th? And was watching them take the hydrant. Cause I knew we had brand new, students on, so just kind of seeing if that went all right. And I seen the hydrant get take, and then I seen another 4-inch line coming towards the hydrant. And I'm like, what are they trying to do there? And then I seen it get kind of pulled back, and I thought, oh, okay, well, they're going to pull it back and supply the truck. And then seems like I seen it come back to the hydrant again one more time. So I thought, well, I better get out and just kind of see what's going on. I don't know, and I could probably ask, or I can ask Mackenzie, what did you pull the 150 footer or the 200 footer off the truck on that to that front door? Do you remember?
No.
It was a smooth bore. Which one's that? 200?
Oh, yeah, it was 150. It was.
Oh, okay. I don't know what was going on there. I walked up at one point and that thing was like tied in knots. So I don't know if it got the V pull on it or what happened. But so after I watched what was going on at the hydrant, I went over, shut the power off at the meter box, and I ran into Ken Foster. And I went around to look for the gas meter, and whatever, shut off the gas meter, ran into Ken Foster, who was trying to find the gas meter, told him I found the meter, shut the gas off. And then went up to the front of the house and helped straighten out that line there because it had a couple of knots in it. So, and then after that, I don't remember what I done. I think after that, I went to try to make sure that we had some resources.
There's a derogatory comment in there at some point, John.
Well, there might have been. I was just curious if
For building people, John, stop it.
if people if there was issues. So
All right, so, the hydrant, so was that you want?
Yeah, that was.
All right, tell us your orders, and tell us what you did and how it went.
So Ken told Lamar that we should take the hydrant on Sixth. And after that, Connor and I that's when engine 31 started coming in.
Mhm.
And my thought was we're gonna relay from the hydrant to engine 31 to truck 34. And I started taking the LDH off 31, and Connor took the line and ran it to the hydrant. And we supplied to 31, and that's when the confusion started.
So you ended up having to go back at some point then and DC
Yeah.
hydrant, that's the one.
Yeah.
Who did that? You were one.
We both did. I think we both went back just to make sure we got it taken care of. And yeah, Lamar, I saw Carol throw out that pony section off the truck. And so I thought, well, engine 31 is facing the correct way. So I was under the impression they were gonna hook into truck 34. And then when I looked back, that wasn't what was happening. But so that's why we pulled off 31, because it was just facing the right way, so we didn't have to come around and
The hose bed was,
try and do
because
that.
they're nose to nose, instead of pulling off of truck 34 that way and then going backwards.
Mhm.
My thought was, we got a hose bed right next to Sixth Street, so we'll go straight off the engine, straight to the hydrant. And then we'll just connect the two ponies and we'll have water in the truck.
We'll be done.
Cool, all right. Rescue 31, who came out on that?
Steve.
I did.
Oh, Steve, you were the one. I saw John on there, but I think John's just listening in.
Yeah, I came in north on Fifth Street and parked at the southeast corner of D and.
What's this height? You said this one was already out this long.
Yeah, Greg was had just the engine I had come north, so no, the other way.
From the bottom up.
Bottom of it.
From
All
the
right,
bottom up, and I parked right there on the southeast corner.
right about here somewhere.
No, before you get to
Oh.
the intersection,
East.
yeah, he parked.
There, you draw it, Steve.
Down on board.
This is wrong.
Yeah, so I ended up staging here
Okay.
with Rescue 31 and just started stripping it of the extra air bottles and took them up the block. There was a cache set up in front of engine 31 on the sidewalk on engine 31.
Oh, sorry. Oh, of course.
Yeah, I had started stripping engine 31 and taking stuff off for suppression.
So once I got all the bottles stripped, I started changing out SCBA's as folks came out and needed it.
Rocky, rescue to rehab 31, where?
So at first I parked kind of over here where it's next to Steve, and then I noticed that there was no police doing any traffic control, and I was concerned about this hose, so I repositioned and I parked kind of like this to block the intersection. If anyone did come up, they'd have to turn around and leave. And then we set up by the second house, kind of by, like right in here is where we ended up setting up, because it was so dark. Then anything before that we couldn't see, like we couldn't even see our chairs. I tripped twice and I thought, okay, we need to, we just kind of set up in the street, not on the sidewalk.
And engine 35, I didn't see Garrett on here. Do you know where they ended up?
Yeah, engine 35 came up behind me,
They
so
were
they were
here.
back here, just kind of,
And I saw truck 13. Did they make it to scene? Were they in
I
the?
think they were
They
north
were on Fifth.
on Fifth,
They were
yeah,
there.
they were
Right,
up there.
30, back 30.
Yep.
Their engine.
Did they do anything, any assignment on this?
Actually, they vented the roof.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, we got it knocked down and Aaron said, can we, get ventilation? Because, I mean, the smoke was just hanging in the house. And I had him standing there in a manpower pool, so I just went up and I said, can you guys go cut a hole in the roof? They jumped up, cut a hole in the roof. Because Foster had called, that there came to me and said, can I cut a hole in the roof? And that was at the 40-minute time check. And I said, we're not putting anybody on the roof until we can get some inspection hole. They said they can go cut an inspection hole and see if there's, because I thought we had fire in the attic initially as well, if there's much smoke that was pushing out.
Mhm.
And so at a 40-minute time check, that's not the time to be putting people on a roof that you think may be compromised either. So
Sure.
I think, did you guys go in and pull a couple?
I'm not sure who did. I think Corey.
Corey and I,
did.
Anyways, they
we attended.
punched a couple holes in the ceiling, got lights up there, and there was really no fire that ever made it up in the attic space. So
So was it just tons of smoke on the inside is what your
So-
thought was? Why the ventilation?
We tried to do horizontal ventilation, but with the way that the entry was, there was no possible way that you could put a fan and have it be effective with this big picture window that had busted out. And I'm not sure if they ended up trying to face it towards the big picture window or not, but it wasn't working. And at some point, somebody had shut it off and I was asking for ventilation, somebody turned it back on, but it still wasn't working. So at that point, everything was very cool when we actually got in there. There's a door on the Bravo side that we went into and it's like a laundry room and then you take a left into the kitchen and that's when we found like knee deep, you're walking, the entire floor is covered with stuff. And so we got in there and it just wasn't, like, everything was cool, but we couldn't see anything. And so we pulled out, I think we were in rehab for 10 minutes, got fresh bottles, came back out. On the back side, we set up a table and like some fertilizer bags and stuff, and then put a fan on top of that so that it could blow in from the Charlie window towards the Alpha side. Finally cleared it.
Mm.
And we went back in and put out one hot spot. That's all we found.
engine 12 was also over by truck 13.
Oh.
And so after they cut the whole truck 13, engine 12 did the initial rehab on it, I guess. So,
Initial what?
Overhead?
or overhaul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just to go back a little bit to the beginning of this incident. Who met you to tell you there was nobody in there?
I met the homeowner on the sidewalk. Anyways, and yeah, and then the other one come running around the building and I asked, it said, are you guys occupants of the house? And they said, yes. I said, is there anybody else in there? And they said, well, our animals are in there. I said, are there any other human beings in there? And they said, no, we're the only two occupants. So I felt good about it at that point, I guess, not that you can't have somebody else in there, but
When did you finally get a primary search on that?
I don't know if we ever hear about it.
I don't think it's in there.
Yeah.
All right. When did you, some fire was knocked down officially at 4:48, it's almost 5 o'clock. I think we got all the units. All right, so key takeaways from this. Definitely goes the Andy Fredericks, FDNY, the fire goes as the first line goes. And so it kind of seems like just off the get-go, that first line kind of set a domino effect in this incident. But I mean, there was just little things about communication and everything else. It sounds like along the way that affected the progression of this fire. And so like I said, that's the point of this, is to sit down and come up with a plan next time, that you have better understanding. Sounds like everybody was kind of thinking along the lines, but then kind of just went in different directions for stuff. Remember, command ultimately is in charge. If he tells you to take a line, that's like you show up to a commercial fire and you start pulling 1 3/4 and the command gets on and says, no, I want a 2.5. You take the 2.5 because you are given a specific order. They're trying to do a specific strategic maneuver there and they want a specific tactic done. The hydrant issue, I guess I don't quite understand why we just didn't do this right off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
even
was my bad.
even after, no, not even the call, but afterward, like, why didn't we just, you're like, oh crap, I don't have water, I'm just taking my line and poof, I'm going there.
Just because I was involved in trying to take that hydrant. I mean, we were so close and everything.
Look like both sides, you're pretty much right there.
Well, meaning, when I say so close, I mean, we were like, everything actually went really well until it didn't, right? We had our lines out and we were pulling our lines. And then it was Brad's pony section was no good. You literally could not, I mean, whatever that coupling is just damaged. And then we had it hooked up and we were gonna have water in the next 10 seconds, but it twisted that, you know what I mean? And so by then, I was already out of water, because I got 2.5 minutes water on that thing, so.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to be, because I wasn't there, but why would you need a pony section?
Why would I need a pony? Well, just because I don't know, it's just kind of a habit. It's the first thing I do is it's right there, I grab it, hook it up and throw it, and then I just hook my next line up to it.
But
My thought-
when you're pulling line, I mean, you can just pull right from the pump out.
Right, but my thought was, we're gonna pull, I didn't know for sure just how long that was, right? And so I didn't know if 100-foot section that came off that back of that engine
Well, do you know
was
what's
gonna reach.
I mean, when I was taught, a pony section was always used when you didn't have enough, right? Like if you ran out, I mean, you had a whole hose bed, you had 900 feet in your hose bed, you had more than enough to get your pump count. And even what they were doing, if they would have just pulled 200 feet of hose and went straight to you without, if that pony section threw them off, I'm not saying that was but it just seems strange that you're using a pony section when you can just pull right at the pump.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah,
That's just a casual observation. I'm not, there was a lot of things that you guys dealt with that night, so. But
Hose deployment, go back to the hose deployment.
So I got told to pull a cross leg. So
Yeah, I get that part,
I pulled
but
it.
how did it pull? I mean, did you
So-
have issue with that? Or was this just one of the other things I
It,
heard?
pulled well. What happened was though, it kind of like when I got it out, one of the pieces flew over my pack. So I was doing the V-split, so I dumped it and then one of the pieces got stuck, so I flipped it over, laid it out. Deployed fine, I got it all laid out, pulled for got water within seconds. I was packed up at the time, sprayed water at the door, it was great. And then what happened was when we ran out of water, I pulled the hose back. And when I was pulling it back, I noticed that, because there was fire coming out, so I pulled it back, there was a knot in it. So then, Casey and Corey helped me get it out. I don't know if I had it when I deployed it though. I was spraying water fine.
This
and I
is the second deployment of it. So essentially you had water and then lost water. Now we got water again.
Yeah, and then that,
Okay.
it was no water in it when the knot was in it though. I noticed it after I pulled it back that it was in there.
Okay.
So, and then I didn't call for water. We pulled it around the back and then we called for water and we already had the knot out. So, before we moved it again.
Is it possible if we didn't fold it right? that you
Sure,
would
I
get
mean,
a
that's
knot?
always a
Well,
possibility.
that you would get a knot in it.
No,
No?
I mean, you'd have to love it really well.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
My guess is though, it kind of like that one picture I had of Jamin's knot
Mm.
from that fire on Williams. It was because they reset. And so they pulled the lines out, the lines get pulled through and then they recharge and then so that's all I wondered. So that's why you had the issue. You're deployed fine. Okay.
oh, and you asked why we didn't go to that hydrant
Uh-huh.
on Fifth. Because Aaron and I had a conversation, that was the main reason. Aaron and I had a conversation on the way there. She was concerned about blocking off Fifth Street, so we had talked about what she'd given me the order to take the hydrant on Sixth. So that's why I didn't think to
And I understand your point. It's a busy road, but
Yeah.
we have a fire. Don't worry about taking hydrants. If we have a fire and we have an active fire, heavy fire, we just take the hydrant. So don't ever have to worry about that. Not a big deal. We just take it. Primary, secondary surge. We gotta have those no matter what on any incident. That's very important. Because speaking from somebody who's had 5 minutes into a working fire and all of a sudden a transient comes walking out the back after everybody else told me he was nobody in there. So, yeah, make sure that we get those in place.
And at one point, it was obvious we were defensive, but I don't know if I just missed it, but I never heard that over
Well, I
the radio.
pulled Corey down and said, I called and said it's gonna be defensive, we're
I just-
transitioning to the defensive attack. By that time, I mean, you could see the plate glass window was gonna go and we weren't set up, we didn't have ventilation, so we weren't gonna go in. And so I transitioned at that point, so.
You said you didn't hear that.
I didn't, but. What's going on here?
All right. There's one more thing. Oh, yeah, Brad. Just real quick. You guys got dispatched here, but then are interrupted. What happened at 31?
So I get up, as soon as the call comes in, I go use the bathroom. Cause I had to go really bad. And Corey, about the time I come out of the bathroom, Corey's coming out of his room. And we just go out of the trailer and we look towards D Street because we thought it was on this side of D Street. Didn't see no header or nothing, but we go, we rush to the shop. I remember hearing Ken at some point booking it towards his rig and taking off and going. We get our stuff on and hop in the rig, and I don't remember if Corey was trying to do something on the computer or not. It felt like to me that we just got our stuff on, we got in the apparatus and we took off. I don't remember anything delaying us. I think Corey did grab something, but I don't think it delayed us.
All right, anything for the group? Anybody got anything specifically?
Because the one thing I see here is the relay pump. At what point would we want to do that? I guess would be the question. How many feet of hose would you have to get out before you think you need to do that in a hydrant area? And let's exclude the rural areas, because we do it all the time. But how many feet of hose would you think you need to get out before it'd really be required to do that?
I think like your whole entire hose bed, like if your hydrant's so far away that you get your entire hose bed out of one engine, then you would want to relay to the next one because you have no more hose to get to them.
Right, I mean, some of it will be dependent, especially with the 4-inch, 600 to 800 feet. Yeah, I would say no less than.
You won't even need it with that.
Right.
You should be able to.
And it's gonna be based on fire flow, because we know that if we go over, 350 gallons a minute?
Yeah, 4-inch.
Right.
We dropped 25 PSI. It's 1,000.
Right, but I mean, on just a run-of-the-mill house fire like this, that shouldn't even factor into the equation. But, and I mean, it's not to slam you, you're young, you're new to the organization, and you're here to learn, and that's what we're doing.
I kind of take blame for that because he had that in his mind. I think Connor and I were thinking hydrant to engine and to truck, sorry. And he was thinking that, and I didn't clarify that with him.
Mhm.
And so that's when he went to the hydrant, came back, saw that we were gonna be short between the pony section and the line. So I started going to, I think I went to engine 31 to look for a pony section, and I turn around about that time is when I see the coupling going over to the pump panel.
Right,
And I'm like, what's happening? And I look at Juan and I'm like, what's happening? Well, we're relay pumping. I'm like, no, we're not. We're going straight to the truck. And then the confusion kind of spiraled at that point. And so as, being the PIC of my unit, I should have clarified to him, like, we're going straight hydrant to truck.
well, and Aaron and I talked a little bit about this, after the fire. And, at some point, we've got so many young people, and inexperienced people, from a command officer, I should just be able to say, take a hydrant. And the next unit that showed up, I said, get water in the truck. And those are the orders you get, and then you carry those out. And I mean, I hate to get to the point where I have to say, I want you to take this 4-inch hose, take it to that hydrant, bring it straight back to the truck, you know, but that's all time delay as well. So,
But I think with Aaron being your only company officer with experience,
right,
you're gonna have to do that for a little while.
right.
I mean, truly for this shift, and it's no, don't take it personally, but at this point in time, I think we have a new enough shift. We went from a really experienced to a really new crew of people. The entire bottom half of our department is gonna be almost brand new, and so just think about that part for, you know, for the next couple of years. Maybe being a little bit more specific in what we want isn't gonna be such a bad thing for a while until we gain that level of experience. I think that's just a reality, and that's fine, you know.
I positioned our unit specifically in that spot because I saw that hydrant there. So I, in my head, I was like, if we need extra tools, like another spanner or something, we have that on our unit. It's right next to that hydrant. So when I walked up to command and tagged in, I saw the hydrant on 6. I saw that that was closer. And then I saw 31 pull up, engine 31, and I knew that we could get hose off of that. I should have communicated to Brad and said, hey, I'm pulling your LEH for the truck. And he would have understood, okay, well, I'm not pumping that. And I should have, when I got the orders from command to take the hydrant to go to the truck, I should have then broke it down to Connor and Juan and been like, we're going to go from hydrant on 6 to the truck. And I should have clarified that. And so that was kind of my, I guess I take blame for that for my crew. So
I should have taken the hydrant on 5th, so I would have had no problem then. So, yeah, for me, it was just hard being flexible at the last second when we made a decision and just, I was surprised to get a specific spot to take the hydrant and just not being able to just switch gears right then and just slam on the brakes. We should slam on the brakes right then, jumped out, done the whole thing, and it just didn't happen.
And that's what I saw in the end. I mean, if we would have done that, we'd have had one person taking a hydrant. At one point, we had 5 people. And what you can do with 5 people is a backup line, a RIT team, and another guy to give the cord for ventilation.
Well, I think that was a big part of the issue was there, is that truly cooks in the kitchen thing, right?
Right.
When you get that many people, everyone's got an idea of what's going on and things are moving fast and you don't have time to sit there and have a powwow, you know, it's like. We would have been better off with 1 or 2 people doing it.
Right.
Yeah, and just being able to troubleshoot, and then if it's not working, abandon it and go to the next day.
Which is why we ended up pulling that line off engine 31.
And we could have done a 2.5 or 3-inch line from engine 31 to you. It was hooked up. That part was working fine. It was just the LVH that wasn't discharged. It wasn't working. But it was like you said, everything was just working till it wasn't.
But even when we had the LDH issue, we came up with another plan and
Yes.
working through that.
Yes, yeah.
We did. I mean, that all took place in a matter of like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes.
Well, like I told Aaron, outside of what didn't go well, at the end of this, when the fire was put out, if everything would have went perfect, it was the same scenario. Because had they been able to make entry, I would hope somebody would have got on the radio and said, this is the tunnel house, and I would have said withdrawal, and we're going defensive. Which is ultimately what wound up happening, but at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we would have had a lot more spectators on this. And I think that, you know, would have shown that maybe we didn't ever act together as well as we should, so.
What made you call the second alarm? Was that when we had the hydrant issues?
I just didn't hear anything else coming, and
Yeah,
Sounds like lots of smoke and lots of fire.
well, I did. I had lots of smoke, lots of fire. We were having problems with water. At one point, I called truck 13 to see where they were at because I was gonna have them get the supply line to the hydrant.
yeah.
I mean, it took a long time for that to take place.
And they were toned out in the initial dispatch, right?
But, you know,
Something like that.
Yes, they were.
And I don't know why they.
Yeah,
but-
John's looking into that issue right now. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I'm glad. they
Because
did.
Chris Novell actually had called and asked
Yeah.
about that, why that
So
happened. They figured that out.
it worked out well, but when I flip my screen open on my computer, it just logs out. And so now you gotta log back in, and trying to do that's a pain in the ass, so. gonna talk to Kibble and see, Kibble was wanted to for a long time, just go to a touch screen back there. So whatever's on the front screen is on the back screen.
That makes
The one on
better
the back.
sense.
Right, and you can toggle back and forth to see what units you have coming. You can, pull up the overhead there. And that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna talk to him and see if we can't make that happen. Other than having two separate computers that you have to keep logged on, because he's had that same frustration. And so is anybody else, I think, that's driven that thing.
Yeah,
So,
you may go months without it over logging into it. Unless you, even if you do it in the morning, I think it logs off.
well, I always let them, screen in the morning, it's up and you don't think much of it, but when you get to the fire and it's not up, it becomes a hassle. So.
Somebody found a dog.
That was me.
Proud moment.
Ask her about the cat.
Well,
let's
so
talk
what
about
happened was I got to the front door and I initially saw it was open. So I was gonna see if I could shut it or if that was like capable. Dylan had talked to the homeowner who was sitting in the grass upon arrival. And he said there was a lot of stuff inside and I had heard there were animals inside. So I opened the door to see if I could shut it. And then I see a cat and then the cat runs back into the fire and I see there's a fan in front of the door. So I shut the screen door, which wasn't really helpful, but blocked off half of the door from getting air in. So I shut that, got water, and I sprayed a little bit of water trying to fight as much fire from the outside as I could, because obviously we couldn't really go inside at the time. And then I peeked again to see if the cat had came back because I could hear it meowing and like dying in the fire. So like, now I feel like a bad person because that cat saw me and ran right back in the fire. So I sprayed water, seeing if it came back because I tried cooling the area. And I opened it and there was a dog sitting there in a sweater, like a three-legged chihuahua. And I was like, hey, Dylan, I got this dog. You take the nozzle really fast. I'm gonna go give this to the homeowner. Cause when I first got there, it was like a minute after we got there probably. And I turned around and the homeowner's gone and Savage was actually standing right in front of the truck. And I was like, Savage, I'm like, Savage, what should I do with this? And he's like, I don't want it. And I was like, okay. So I was like, it's like, put it in the bark dust. So I went and I didn't want to leave Dylan alone at the front door, even though I knew he was fine. I just like Noons had went in, I think she was making contact with engine 31 because it was about the same time. So I actually put it in the bark dust. And then at that time, Noons grabbed me and then we threw the ladder.
Oh, there was some assurances there.
And the dog lived.
The dog lived,
Yeah,
yep.
there you go.
Yep.
Sounds like there was a lot of cats.
Chickens, I heard chickens too.
Yeah, same.
And reptiles, yeah.
I counted about 4 or 5 dead cats.
Wow.
Yeah, I think there's only one inside. And then the cat, I never found the cat inside though.
I found a lot of cats inside.
Well, not that cat though.
Candace
found that one.
Albany's crew come out, so there was a stack of cats in there.
Oh, really? All right, so obviously we had some things that went wrong, some things went good. So just as we do these, take this back and file it in your folder. Especially when it comes to the hose line, hose deployment, taking a hydrant. We don't tend to do relay pumping on residential structure fires in town. That'd be an oddity. Because also, if we had another incident, we could break an engine loose. And so remember, we always strip one engine for tools whenever possible, or truck, if that's what the first out unit is that arrives on scene. So anyways, that's all I have. If anybody has anything else, I'm picking on you.
Just a couple things that were with the engine have been repaired or whatever. H shift took care of the
pony
hose yesterday and.
What was it, Brad?
So
Cut
Blaine,
their
yeah,
company.
Blaine and them said that the gasket or whatever had turned or folded or something.
And then they just found it.
Yeah, and then with the intake, I basically adjusted it today to where if it were to spin again or whatever, it wouldn't just slam right into that thing. And it's still easy to get to, so we shouldn't have an issue with that anymore, hopefully. And then as far as the cap for the LDH on the passenger officer side, where the two keys lock together and slide in those little grooves, there's a piece of metal that actually has, I guess, over time been kind of peeled out. And it was rubbing up against that thing, making it really hard to get it off. So I just tapped it with a hammer for now. I was looking for one to replace it with. but now it just spins like it's supposed to, and it's easier to get off, so.
Can you file that too? Right?
Probably could, it's definitely got stress fractures and stuff in it, like, at some point it'll break off.
Have you talked to Casey about that? See if you can get one replacement.
No, I haven't yet, but, cause I went to look for one this morning, I didn't find one, but I was gonna email him today.
Yeah, shoot Casey an email, let him know that that's.
One of those sections of those two had the gaskets and the stores didn't roll, which that's why it was so hard to twist. And
Yeah, I
I
think that
talked
was
to,
the-
I talked to Blaine the next day. Because we had the Clackamas cheap hose we got,
Mhm.
and that stuff wouldn't couple to anything. I mean, we were spinning the store's fittings off of hydrants and messing up threads, you know, from the set screw. And so some of those just, they're not necessarily all that compatible. So Blaine went out that day, him and C-Ship went out and checked everything, and they found that the one coupling, or the gasket in the one coupling was rolled. So they pulled that out, reset it back in there, and they said everything went fine, so it shouldn't be a compatibility issue. Those things will go, like you're talking about, you know, getting chunks like that, but
Those were old couplings.
yeah.